Next up, we're in the top 10 now. This is heavy-duty stuff. Under the Skin at number 10, starring Scarlett Johansson. She plays an alien who is in disguise on Earth, capturing humans so that they can be turned into food for her alien race. It is a staggering achievement in sci-fi horror. It's one of the best scores I've heard in a long time. Scarlett Jo is phenomenal. In this movie, it's so hard to pin down. There's a blend of realism with a little bit of surrealism, but then also they also use some real people in the film as well, non-actors. The tone of this is just, tonally, it's so special. It's deep, it's meditative, it's dark, it's stylish. It really is visually stunning and genius, but also it has one of the most disturbing and most horrific scenes I've ever seen in a movie ever. And it's a scene that I still, like, when I think about it, gives me just like, ugh, makes me shiver with fear. It's just, it's amazing. Jonathan Glazer is an absolute genius filmmaker. If you haven't seen it, check it out.
Next up, we have The Tragedy of Macbeth, which was directed by just Joel Cohen, starring Denzel Washington in the lead role of Macbeth, who is a Scottish lord convinced by a trio of witches that he will be the next king of Scotland, and he will do nefarious things to become the next king of Scotland. Also starring Frances McDormand. Incredible film. Production design is absolutely absurd. I think the Coen brothers are such special filmmakers, and it was really cool to see Joel just do a movie by himself and just see his artistic voice in a movie. And I think this movie was one of my favorites of the year when it came out back in, this was 2021.
2021.
Remember we had Raiders of the Lost Oscars and won a couple of awards.
This movie was so cool.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I love it. I love it.
It's not easy to watch, though. It's Shakespearean dialogue, so strap in, drink some coffee. But if you pay attention, you'll get what's going on.
It's a fucking visual. There's a visual feast for the eyes, man. It's the most visually stunning film A24 has ever made.
It's up there. I think like The Green Knight is up there as well for that.
I don't think any of the movies have anything on Tragedy of Macbeth. Honestly, visually, it's fucking incredible.
Yeah, plus black and white. It's pretty incredible.
Yeah, it's remarkable. Next up, we have one of my favorite movies of the last decade, and one of the best movies on this list, Bo Burnham's 8th Grade, which is an incredible coming-of-age story about this girl who's trying to fit in on social media, trying to fit in on YouTube, trying to fit in school. It's so funny, so creative, and so relatable, so intimate, and it's also very, very sad at times. And my God, what a great performance from this young actress. Her name escapes me right now. But I love this movie so much. It's just so fucking awesome. And I was shocked. Bo Burnham making a touching coming of age drama. I didn't know what to expect walking into this movie, and then I watched it and I was like, oh my God, this movie's so good. For some reason, it didn't get any awards recognition, and for some reason, it hasn't gotten much love from film communities, just a little bit. It doesn't really get talked about that much. I never see anything about it on social media, on film groups, on nothing. I'm not sure why, but I think this movie's really special. It's really a phenomenal film. It is, without a doubt, it really is one of my favorite American movies of the last 10 years. It's
Elsie
way up
Fisher.
there. Thank you. That's the actress.
Elsie Fisher. I agree. Moving on to number 7, one of my favorite movies of the last several years, specifically in the sci-fi genre, Ex Machina, written and directed by Alex Garland. I think like this is one of those movies that in 50 years people are going to be talking about it like almost like a Blade Runner level film because of how relevant it is right now. This movie was made in 2014, and it's more relevant than ever, especially with the growth of AI in our world and how it's just becoming in the face of everybody and in the public, and everyone's becoming aware of it, and it's becoming aware. And I think that's a lot about what that movie's about. It's about Ex Machina is about this genius Google search. Website builder and designer, tech genius
All around cool
conglomerate
dude.
who is testing his new product basically out on an engineer from his company, and the product is potentially artificial intelligence with
The Turing test.
Turing, but he's
Yeah.
using the guy played by Donald Gleason to do a Turing test on to verify if it's actually achieved intelligence and self-awareness. And I think there are so many things to say about it, so many great metaphors hidden inside of it, whether visuals or dialogue or situations. And it's got such a great third act. I think it's just a perfect movie from beginning to end. And I think a lot of sci-fi movies, for me, it's the third act either makes or breaks them, and you can lose people easily around that time, depending on the concept, if it's a high concept movie. But I think he really pulls it off for this movie. I think it's his best movie, and I think it's really special.
Yeah.
And I think that, like I said, in like 50 years, people are still going to be talking about Ex Machina.
Absolutely.
It's fucking awesome.
Next up, at number 6, we have another Yorgos Lanthimos film, The Killing of a Sacred Deer, starring Colin Farrell, Nicole Kidman, and Barry Keoghan. I remember seeing this film because I was a big fan of Dogtooth, his earlier film, and I was like, this movie is insane.
I remember the first time you showed me Dogtooth. I was
Yeah.
like, what the fuck is this?
I still think Dogtooth is his best film.
I didn't know people made movies like that.
Yep. Not an A24 movie, so it's not on the list. Killing a Sacred Deer is really miraculous, and it's really nothing like it. It's a horror movie. It's a psychological thriller. It's a hilarious dark comedy. It's a bizarre, strange film. But what I really love about the film is how he puts myth into the movie, where he perfectly inserts like this, almost like horrific mythology into. At first, the first hour was like a more of a traditional kind of movie. Then you're like, wait a second, there's something else going on here, and there seems to be something, some other forces at work here. And then the movie just really takes a turn, and you're like, oh my god. But there's something really cool about Yorgos's tone. I like to call him a dark Wes Anderson in tone, where dialogue and acting is portrayed in a way that's like not quite the standard for whether it be realism or authentic acting. It's more kind of like dry dialogue, dry acting. It's really hard to describe, but it has a Wes Anderson feeling, but more of it's like a dark and mature version. And Killing of a Sacred Deer is fantastic. Barry Keoghan is unbelievable. It's the first thing I ever saw him in, and he absolutely floored me. And then when I found out he was Irish, I was like, "What? This kid's accent's insane in this movie." It's really sensational film. I really adore it.
Yeah, like in Yorgos movies, things like curses can be real.
Yeah,
I love
exactly.
it.
Yeah.
It's such a good movie. I can't recommend it enough. He plays this kid who dies during surgery. Colin Farrell's character is a heart surgeon who operate on him, and it's basically curses him. It's fucking awesome. Incredible movie. I'm sure y'all seen it. Moving on to number 5. Big guns now. Top 5. At number 5, we have Everything Everywhere All at Once, winner of 7 Academy Awards. I mean, y'all know how good this freaking movie is, from the Daniels, and the recognition and acclaim and hype that it built the last year is absurd. It was their most successful film, one of their most critically acclaimed film, the most awarded film they've ever made, and deserved all the recognition it got, and it's a tremendous movie.
Only 4 left. Next up, at number 4, we have Greta Gerwig's Lady Bird, which I find to be absolutely delightful, wonderful, so well written, so well acted. I love Saoirse Ronan. She's always been one of my favorite actors, and she really broke out in a huge way with Lady Bird. And I found Greta Gerwig to be a really great new voice in filmmaking with her first film here as a director. She had been writing screenplays for movies for years before this.
And acting for a
Yeah.
while, too.
Oh, she's an actor? Obviously. But I love Lady Bird. I think it's a perfect coming-of-age film. I think that Saoirse Ronan delivers one of the best performances of like the last decade. And, I mean, there's not much more can be said that hasn't already been said about this movie. It is so famous and loved for all the right reasons, and I love Greta Gerwig as a writer and director.
Number 3, we have another horror movie from Robert Eggers. We have The Witch, starring Anya Taylor-Joy. This came out all the way back in 2015.
15, wow.
Whew, it's been a while. This is a divisive film. 6.9 on IMDb.
What? It's under 7?
Not a lot of people like it. It's it's a slow drag. I mean, it's a slow building tension film, in which a lot of great horror movies are. And I think it's exceptional. It's so well written and so well directed. The execution's phenomenal. Anya Taylor-Joy just like blew the hell up after this movie.
Yeah.
And also with Split as well. But I think this movie is tremendous. It's terrifying. Great ending. It's so dark and evil and twisted and messed up. And I freaking love The Witch, man. It's so well made.
It's got one of the best endings of the decade, man. Though, oh my god, it's so good. Man, I can't believe it's under a 7.
Me too.
What's
man.
it on Letterboxd? So let me see real quick. Let me see. I thought that this would be like a no-brainer for a top 5.
I don't know, man. A lot of trippy horror movies. People don't. They're not really.
Might be
into.
might be because of the old speak. You think?
Maybe
3.9, so it's a pretty good Letterboxd rating.
Rotten Tomatoes, it's 90% critic score and then 60% audience score. It's almost rotten on audience score.
Wow, general audiences don't like the movie
1%
at
away.
all. I think it's a fabulous film. It's so stylish, so well crafted. Production design. He was a former production designer, hence why it's so good in his movies. Cinematography is outstanding. Anya's amazing lead in the film, but then the rest of the cast is really, really terrific. The editing's really sensational, and the music is great. There's so many great. Every element of the movie works phenomenally. It's in one of the better horror films of the century, I would say, without a doubt. Like that's easy to pick. But I would say maybe it's because of the old speak dialogue that people don't like it. Yeah. Also, I love Salem Witch ideas. Like to set a movie during that era, I think is really, really cool. Not that it was cool, but I'm just saying.
So if you lived in the 17th century, you'd try to burn people alive, try to burn witches.
That's not what I said. That's what you're saying. Awkward. He's a witch, burn him! Next up, we have another horror movie. At number 2, we have Ari Aster's Hereditary, starring Toni Collette, Alex Wolff, Gabriel Byrne, and a cast of excellent other actors. This movie, I mean, we all talk about it. Everybody knows Hereditary is an amazing movie. Really one of the most important films in A24's history because of its critical and financial success. Ari Aster cemented himself out of nowhere as being a preeminent director of horror and just filmmaking in general now. I love Hereditary. I remember seeing it in theaters very clearly and having an absolute blast, and I found it to be an absolutely sensational horror film.
Yeah, this movie probably paid for a lot of the movies on this list to get made.
Definitely.
It was their number one successful movie before Everything Everywhere all at once.
Yeah, so for
decimated.
8 years, it was its
For a while,
one.
it was huge. Such a big hit, and freaking love this movie. Is the most scared I've been in movie theaters in decades, and man, it was awesome. It was an awesome theater experience.
Ari, you changed things forever.
Y'all know how much we love Hereditary, and I'm sure you all do too. Now,
What could number 1 be?
time for our number
wonder.
1 ranked A24 movie.
You just spoiled it.
No. No, wait. What was the movie that got called instead at the Oscars?
La La Land.
La La Land. I'm just kidding. Moonlight.
Way to ruin your joke.
I couldn't remember the movie. Moonlight is our number 1 A24 film. I think this is kind of a no-brainer for us. It was their first Best Picture before everything, and it's just a phenomenal film, masterpiece in filmmaking from Barry Jenkins. I've never really seen a movie done so well, telling the story of someone's life in 3 chapters like this. You know, we have the version of the character in his youth, then his adolescence, teenage years, and then what he's grown into, and they're all connected, and they all stem and root from his childhood, basically, and the person he's become is a result of everything that's happened to him in his past and his youth, just like most of us, and how our experiences in our past shape who we are. And I think it's so well acted and so well written. It's very meditative. It's very patient and exploratory, and I freaking love it. It's beautiful. It's gorgeous.
The movie that comes to mind is Jobs.
Okay, yeah.
Danny Boyle's film.
So yeah,
It's
that's
told in
three-
3 chapters,
Three
3
events. Yeah.
Similarly structured, although in that film it's 3 moments, and in this film, the 3rd chapter it's kind of like one long scene, but then the other 2 chapters, the first 2 chapters, there are multiple scenes in each chapter.
Yeah, but there's not a lot of passage of time in them.
Exactly. Yeah, for sure. This movie is. I remember I saw this by myself at the Los Feliz Theater in LA, and man, when the credits were rolling, I was just sitting there, just like awestruck and just like frozen. I had never seen anything like it before. I had never heard of Barry Jenkins before. It was just like an otherworldly experience for me as a member of an audience seeing this in theaters. It's also the first time I ever heard music from Nicholas Bertel, who's become one of my favorite composers. He does Succession. A really remarkable movie writer. You know one of my favorite tracks of all time, "The Middle of the World," is in this film, and it's just the strings he wrote for this movie. I just hear it and it just gives me goosebumps every time I hear this music. And obviously he's so famous now with Succession with the piano themes. But the strings he wrote for this movie are really unbelievable. And then Barry Jenkins, he was the closest thing I've seen in directing to Jonathan Demme, where he likes to have his characters look right into the lens. It happens all the time in this movie, and that's something Jonathan Demme, it's a technique he always used in his films. And some filmmakers try it, but not everybody can pull it off. But Barry Jenkins pulls it off really well in this film, especially in the 3rd chapter in the diner. If you look, Andre Braugher and the other actor, I can't remember his name, they're looking at us. They're not. And Barry Jenkins often cuts to these lens right in the face of the actor, looking right into the lens. And when it works, it's so powerful to the audience, and it really fucking works in this movie. And it's a terrific film. It's haunting, it's heartbreaking, it's powerful, it's funny, it's beautiful, it's meditative, it's reflective, it's passionate. I mean, there's not enough words can describe how incredible of a piece of filmmaking Moonlight is, and I do feel confident it will stand the test of time and be remembered as a classic of this era.
Semi-biographical film by Barry Jenkins as well, and Mahershala Ali winning Best Actor for like 20 minutes. Supporting actor for like 20 minutes of screen time.
Yeah.
So incredible in this movie. Naomi Harris is incredible in this movie as well. She filmed it in like a weekend, I believe. It was like
3
just
days.
3 days.
Yeah.
Because she was filming Bond.
Money
Skyfall, I believe. Yeah, that wraps our top 50 A24 movies.
There's a lot of movies.
It's incredible how many
That's a
they've
lot of
made,
good ones.
because I think they've in total made almost like they've made
90?
like 75 to 90 movies, something like that.
Their batting record's insane, because like every movie studio, like it's like 50-50 movies good or bad.
Sometimes lower.
Yeah,
man.
so I mean their track record is really unparalleled.
All right. I'm sure you all love A24 as much as us, and we really appreciate you tuning into this episode on A24. Become a patron today at patreon.com/Raiders of the Lost Podcast. Take care, everyone.
See you next time.
This episode was executive produced by our chosen one patrons, Cody Moen, Andrew Hagan, Becca Keene, Benjamin Cook, Calvin Murphy Griggs, Nicholas Martin, Darian Singleton, Tyler McFly, Andrew Hagan. Our chosen one patrons are our biggest supporters. Thank you so much. Raiders of the Lost Podcast is a mirror image production. Sound mixing done by Jacob Kosler. Opening music by Chase Jackson.